Obviously back to work for us. Obviously, bad start to our season, poor start, whatever way you want to characterize it. 3 games into the season, nobody wants to be where we are, but we are 1-2. I'm a 1-2 coach, and we've got to work to get better. But there's 4 quarters in the season, and the first quarter we did not get off to a good start. But there is plenty of time for us to come out of this in a very, very positive way. That's what we talked about over the last day or so. We obviously compete unevenly, if you will, in a manner that I probably would characterize as we lack a sense of urgency in the way we play. We play in spurts. We play really well for a period of time, and then we kind of don't play at the highest level necessary against really good competition. So, finding that sense of urgency, that attention to detail, that's absolutely crucial to being a really good football team. And we can't be the kind of football team that we want to be unless we play with a sense of urgency for 4 quarters. We do some really good things, and then we do some really sloppy things. And to be the kind of football team we want to be, we have to eliminate that. We have to eliminate it in our preparation. We have to eliminate it in the way we go to work every single day. And then we've got to be able to make certain that there's an attention to detail, and that urgency that I just mentioned begins to show itself. So we get to work now on our ACC swing here over the next 3 weeks with Duke, Syracuse, and North Carolina State. Duke is a well-coached football team. David Cutcliffe has taken this Duke team and really transformed it into a physical, tough, aggressive defensive club. They like to bring pressures, but they're very stingy in what they do. They I think have manufactured a lot of pressures and sacks and turnovers. So do a very good job on the defensive side of the ball and getting after you. Coach is really good at developing quarterbacks. They lose their starter, but Daniel Jones has been as good as any freshman in the country in terms of running their offense. So very diversified on offense, can run it, can throw it. He's got some nice weapons, do a lot of things on offense. So, good football team. They've got some guys that, certainly can make some big plays on the offensive side of the ball. And like I said, they've got 85 scholarship players, and all of them are seasoned players. They played in a bowl game, won a bowl game last year, and certainly have the players back that can create all kinds of problems for us. So, for us, a lot of respect for Duke, but we really got to clean up our game. And we've got to be able to play with that sense of urgency for 4 quarters against another really good opponent. I think that's probably all I have from my end. I'll open it up to questions.
Ryan, you talked about urgency. How do you get the team to play with that sense of urgency quicker?
Well, first of all, I think it's coming to the realization of recognizing, who we are as a football team. And, now 3 weeks into it, it's pretty clear that we've got a group that will compete. There's no quit in them, but they can't turn it on and turn it off. And so the realization of knowing who we are and what our weaknesses are allows us to go to work on that. And you do that by, first of all, getting that out on the table, saying, hey, here's who we are. Let's go to work on that. Let's be cognizant and aware of it, and prepare better in practice, that we don't take a play off in practice, that there's a great focus and concentration in everything that we do, and then we carry that over into the games. And so I think the first step is realizing where your weaknesses are so you can begin to address them.
And both sides seem to feed off each other. Do you think that one side kind of ignites the other, or why do you think that they seem to get going at the same time?
Well, I think that's the game that we play in, and a team sport kind of has momentum, and there's some inexperienced players that at times don't play with that single-minded purpose that unfortunately emotion plays into it, and it shouldn't. And that's another point that was brought up, is that we shouldn't be waiting for the ebbs and flows of games to carry us. We should be the ones initiating the flows of the games, and that is the makeup of this team right now that needs to change.
I think the running game took a little step back against Michigan State. What do you think? What did you see, and what do you think you need to improve on?
I tend to disagree with it after evaluating our offense. Our first half, we had pretty good balance in what we wanted to do. We carved out the kind of run game. We were inconsistent in our performance, certainly. And then we only ran the ball twice in the fourth quarter and kind of got behind and never were really able to settle in. There were some things that we clearly have to get better at. There was some movement up front that we didn't handle very well. There were some pressures that the ball needed to get thrown out and the ball not run, all correctable errors. But I don't stand here right now worried about our running game. I believe our running game is going to be where it needs to be. I think we made some mistakes and then never got in the kind of committed run flow in the second half that we needed to, because we got down so quickly.
And can you talk about why you gave Josh the number one, what he did last week, and why you awarded him that honor?
It was the way he, and since he's gotten here as a freshman, the way he's worked. It's been a championship level kind of work ethic, and you've got to have the all-time winning percentage for college football. You have to have players that are your best players. Also, they've got to be your best workers. And he's one of clearly our best workers in practice. And so he sets a high bar, and that's why he wore the jersey number one. Yep.
I guess it's to me.
It's a slow group today. I think you just charge him up.
Okay.
He doesn't need one. I think maybe the rest of the group does.
Offensive line play, after you've had a chance to review it, how do you feel like their progress is 3 games into the season?
I'll tell you one thing. We were physical as heck. Quentin Nelson had his best game of the year, got back to playing physical football. He knocked some dudes around, and it was fun to watch. It was kind of what we expected him to look like. Played that physical kind of football. Thought he was thinking a little bit too much, worried about his partners, and not worried about getting off the ball and getting after people. So that was nice to see. Mike did some really good things. Needs to finish off some of his pass protections, but did some really good things. We missed a couple of protections. We got a little sloppy on some protections that were easily some of the easiest protections that we have. And that goes to some of the things of that sense of urgency that we have to have all the time. And there was some movement up front that we didn't handle quite well. And that has to get better. So if there's one thing that I would critique more than anything else is we've got to finish off our pass protections. We got some unnecessary hits on the quarterback late after throws, or what were not illegal hits. I'm not claiming them to be such, but we got to hang in there with our protections to the echo of the whistle. And then there was some movement up front that we didn't handle quite as well. We got to do a better job there. I think in those 2 areas, I would be critical. Other than that, we did what we needed to do offensively on the offensive line to have success. We would not have lost the football game because of our offensive line play.
For a guy that really had to step up in competition, you seem to be getting a lot of mileage out of Chase Claypool. both in special teams and offense. Do you see a possibility for him to continue to expand his role for you?
Yeah, I think that's a guy that we've got to look towards getting on the field more. We've had some conversations as a staff as to finding a more expanded role for him. We got to be careful of loading up too much on him. It's, football, at the level that he played, was, I'd be careful what I say here, but, he wasn't, he wasn't getting all the kinds of route running and comprehensive coverages and all the things that he's got to make adjustments on in high school that he is now. This is a big leap for him. So we got to be careful with what we give him, but we definitely want to keep giving him more and more each and every week.
I think every media opportunity from March until the beginning of the season, you got asked about who your leaders were going to be, what kind of leadership you were going to get. Mm-hmm. Now that it's here, now that you're into the season, what are you seeing from your leaders after a 1 and 2 start?
Well, I think leadership at this point, takes on a role of accountability and responsibility, and that is there. It's clearly there. I think what we want to see more than anything else is that, all of our players now, when you get the game rolling and you get into the season, it's, during the week, accountability and responsibility is what I'm looking for from our seniors. And that means not just on the field, but off the field. And then when we get into the games, that senior leadership, kind of goes away, and then you expect them to be playmakers for you. Your veteran guys. You want your captains to be your best players. And so we have those guys pegged to be top players for us, and they got to continue to come through.
On your Sunday teleconference, you mentioned your optimism about some young defensive players that you think in time are going to help you as you kind of measure overwhelming them versus just push them in there, and how do you kind of gauge that? What's the right balance with that?
Well, you got to look at, first of all, we're playing, a freshman safety, we're playing a freshman nickel, we're playing a first-year starter at will, a first-year starter at corner. So I don't know how much you can keep pushing that envelope, in terms of, how many first-year players do you put out on that field against outstanding competition, and it become, problematic, if you will. So we're going to keep pushing and getting those athletes out on the field. They're playing a lot of special teams right now, and so that's kind of where they're dipping their toe in the water, and we hope that that's gaining some confidence for them, so we can continue to play him more like a Chase Claypool. He's gotten a lot of confidence from playing on special teams, which has allowed us to open the door to more offensive plays.
Last one from me. I know your kind of introduction into football was on the defensive side of the ball. That was where you got your start. As you're in this situation, I know that you're supporting Brian Van Gorder 100%, but you mentioned getting fundamentals right, getting teaching right. As the head coach, do you feel compelled to kind of shift your emphasis, your time over to the other side of the ball while it's in this state?
Well, I have to be able to know that everything in the program is being taught, being effectively communicated on a day-to-day basis. And so physically, does that mean on the practice field I have to stand on the defensive practice field to get that done? No, it doesn't mean that. What it means is that I have to be in defensive meetings. It means that I have to be aware of what the game plan is. It means that I have to know how we're teaching things and communicating them, which I do. I don't need a headset. I don't need to be on the defensive side of the ball coaching tackling. I'm very confident that I've got outstanding coaches to do that. But I'm the head coach, and I better be certain that I know exactly what's going on in all facets of my program: offense, defense, special teams, recruiting, all of those things. So, yes, but from a optics standpoint, I don't need to be standing on the defensive field to make sure that gets done. Yes.
I kind of had the same question, but kind of off that a little bit. How have you handled defensive issues in the past?
Scored more points.
Is there anything, I mean, nothing else, like kind of just being more active, in the defensive
No, I
end?
mean, I think certainly there are some things that you can do and some that you can't. And if you're doing all the things fundamentally, as I just kind of alluded to, if you believe that all the things that you can do as a coach and all the things that you're doing from preparation are being covered, then there's not much more you can do other than believing in your players, working to get better each and every week, and sticking by them so that they improve and get better as the year progresses. And I believe the group's going to get better each and every week. Some of the mistakes that were made out there are fundamental errors that are correctable errors. And that's why I believe we're going to continue to get better in that area. So it's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both.
And one more question. What do you think about the cameras kind of catching your interactions with your coaches on the sideline?
It's my office. It's my office. If it was in your office, they'd probably see your interactions with your employees on a day-to-day basis too. It's just what it is. I mean, if we were up 55-0, we'd probably have no interaction conversations. But, there's going to be conversations on the sideline because it's on national TV. But, I have great respect for all my coaches. They have respect for me. We have a chain of command. If I don't like something, I'm going to make my opinions known. And it's just business as usual. It's not personal. It's about getting it right. And, again, it's my office. So I think if you have a camera in your office, there would be those moments that we all have that people would ask what was going on.
Coach, Cole Luke struggled at times against Michigan State. How do you feel like he's going to bounce back going forward, and how much do you need him to continue to set that example for all those young defensive backs?
Cole's a good player. He's the smartest defensive player we have. He's got to play with a sense of urgency. He's got to catch that football. He's got to make that tackle. He's got to stay above the cut and be in good position to break on number one. I mean, he's got to do all those things, and he's capable of doing it, and he knows that. So all I've told Cole is that he's a really good football player, and he's put himself in good positions. He's just got to go make some plays, and we got to rely on him because he's a 3-year starter for us out there. And he's got to be able to play better for us, and I'm confident he will.
Right in the middle. I think your special teams hurt you in games 1 and 3 and really helped you in game 2. What's your message this week for, I guess, coverage and returns and the mental errors that took points off the board and also gave Michigan State points?
It's a bit of a mixed bag. The kickoff return for a touchdown, if you watch it was blocked beautifully. We had one situation where a kid tried to do a little bit too much away from the dang play. Because you look at it and go, wow, that was beautifully blocked, and then you got one guy who's trying to do a little too much. And then the punt, again, if we had to do it all over again, CJ needs to run like heck and scream in that situation. Very difficult situation where the ball's on the ground like that. We practice it by yelling. It was very loud. We got to be more aware. Very difficult, both of those situations, but they occurred, and they were big plays. So I'm not standing here to condemn my special teams unit. They did some really good things. I think it's a trending group. They're doing some really good things. We got to clean up some of those mistakes.
That's kind of my next question. There's so many young guys in coverage and return, but it seemed like that they are you have faith in them ascending, and that you don't need to get the guys that used to do it, like Onawalo and Tranquil, in there
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they
yeah.
were going better.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I like what we're doing. I like the energy of the group. I like their investment in it, in terms of, I mean, I don't have to beg anybody to be on these teams. A few years ago, it was like we had to pay them to be on special teams. So I like where they're going. We got to clean up some of those unfortunate mistakes.
Brian, over here, I know the circumstances of the game called for obviously a lot of passes in the second half, but early
Yeah.
on, what went to, I guess, getting Josh Adams significantly more carries than Terry and Folston? What's Terry need to do to split the load, so to speak?
They're different runners. You know, the game will probably, from week to week, will kind of dictate who we're playing, how we're playing. You know, that was a more pressure oriented team where you're going to have to break more runs inside. But, you know, I wouldn't read too much into it. You know, I think they're both going to share a lot of carries throughout the year.
And Daniel Jones, a little bit similar situation to Kaiser almost last year in the sense of he's a
Yeah.
redshirt freshman who got thrown in a week before the season. What do you have to guard against a guy who you have so little film on and you don't really know what to
We
expect?
got enough film on him. He's poised. I mean, I love his poise for a freshman. He has a really good command in the offense. He does not seem at all phased when he's back there. Now they're in an open-ended offense where, you know, you're exposed at times, and he does not blink back there. I like the kid. I think he shows a lot of poise, and he's got some athletic ability.
I know you downplayed the lack of sacks last week, but just pressure in general, what do you think the front seven needs to do differently or better, just getting to the quarterback? Because the numbers are pretty low with tackles for loss and quarterback hurries as well.
Well, you know, I think we all know what, if you bring pressure, you know, you put pressure. So it's measured. It's measured by how much pressure do you want to put on your corners and safeties. And so, you know, we're measuring that. You know, we're measuring it by down and distance. We're measuring it by opponent, you know, from week to week. So we're in a position where we have to, you know, obviously we've got to bring pressure in certain situations. And we got to get home. And we're close to getting home. We had a couple, we're right there. And we've got some hurries, but we don't have the sacks yet, obviously. You know, Duke got 2 out of 2 guys that are 5'9", 180, you know. So we got to get there. We understand that. We're clearly aware of the situation. But bring pressure, you add pressure.
Thanks.
You mentioned those Duke sacks, Brian, and 2 coming from Edwards, a safety, but they also have a ton of experience in their
Oh, yeah.
secondary.
Very experienced group.
Is their ability to get pressure based on scheme or personnel or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I mean, Edwards is 5'9". He bent underneath the tackle set. I mean, he is flexible. I mean, he got underneath the set of the tackle. I mean, they do a really good job. You know, Coach knows he's been coaching football for a long time. He's got a good scheme. They do a really good job of coaching their players. They do a nice job. And they've got some veteran players that played a lot of football.
Edwards has also proven to be a dynamic return man. Do you kick
Very
to
good,
him?
4 touchdowns plus. Yeah, he's a guy that we're aware of, and we have to take special note of him in special teams.
Will you kick to him?
Absolutely. And then maybe not.
Finally, I wanted to ask about Borders as a cornerback. What is it that makes him so effective?
Well, again, here's another veteran guy, you know, who's played a lot of football. He's smart. He doesn't put himself in awkward positions. They mix things up coverage-wise. He's not always on an island, and I just think they do a nice job with him. And he's a smart player. And I think, you know, you would expect that, that the way they play, they know their strengths and they know their weaknesses. They do a nice job.
Do you ever put on the tape of another team and show it to your team and say, these are some of the things that we would like to emulate, that we would like to do? Can you adapt like that?
Those are things that we would do in the off-season. If there were some things that other teams are doing that we liked, we probably wouldn't do that during the season. But there are definitely teams that utilize personnel or teach things or have schemes that we've stolen from others that we think that are really good. But that's generally something we would do in the off-season.
Up here. Saturday, we saw Dalen kind of running with the tight end, turning around, making a play on a ball. And you talk about not wanting to throw too much at freshmen, but what about Dalen's game and his mentality allows him to be in those kind of situations?
Again, so you got the tight end, right? That kind of stuff. We're trying to, gradually bring them along into, you don't have 2-to-1 and, you've got to defend against the vertical hook seam, but, if the tight end blocks, you're a second wave blitzer, all that kind of stuff. So, we're trying to keep it, as a natural progression for these guys to learn and gain some confidence, and Dalen's coming along. He hadn't played a lot of football, quite frankly. And we had a hard time getting him lined up early in camp. And he's coming along, and he's ascending. And you're going to see more of him as we move forward.
Just with a player with that natural ability, to kind of follow up on Matt's question about QB pressures, is he a guy who, as he continues to be able to get lined up correctly, he's a guy who can maybe help with that?
There's a lot of those guys, and they're coming. I know you want them tomorrow. I want them tomorrow. I wanted them last week, but they're going to get there.
Deshaun, after the game, it was kind of the same thing against Texas, where he took responsibility for basically not putting up enough points, and he said that, he feels like the offense could score 70. Is he a guy who's as well equipped as a quarterback maybe could be to have that perfectionist mentality?
He's got to play with more sense of urgency. He's one of those guys. We had 7 plays in a row that were negative plays that are just unacceptable offensively. And it's not just him, but he's running the offense. And they are plays that are out there to be made that we're not making. And we come out in our first drive, and we look pretty good. We drop a ball and make a mistake, and we lose that urgency there for a while. We have to have that from the very beginning, and that starts with the guy with the keys in his hand who's driving the car, and he's got to have more of that.
Brian, to your left up here, kind of playing off your sense of urgency. Are you a coach that will use playing time as a carrot for players in terms of, if you're not executing, we'll take you out of the game, and then building on that, if you are, how do you balance that with, specifically on defense, not wanting to get too young on that side of the ball?
I've only used it for guys that don't play hard. If you're not playing hard, and we ran into a little bit of that with our receivers that were not, they just weren't physically able to go as long as we wanted them to go when we were trying to push the tempo late in the game, and they couldn't go, vertically, come back, hit another route vertically, come back. So that we have to keep an eye on. But if you're playing hard and you're giving us everything, I don't use that as a way to, motivate you. But if you're not playing hard, that's a way that I'm going to pull you off the field.
Then on game days, how do you handle a guy who's playing hard but maybe not playing well?
I just let him go. You'll break out of it. As long as he's given us everything that we have and we've evaluated him as being the best player we have at that position, just keep playing. It'll come, but you just got to keep playing and keep coaching him.
What do you feel is probably the strength of this team right now?
They've got a competitive resolve. They want to win. They're willing to. They've got pride, and when you've got pride and a competitive spirit, that's a big piece. They don't like to lose, but they have to understand that to win, you can't start winning until you stop losing. And they do some things that prevent them from winning. And it's kind of the things that I pointed out.
Up the middle. You say you don't need to be on the defensive side of the ball coaching tackling or to be physically on the defensive field. What would it take for you to have to be in that position to say, okay, I have to be more hands-on on the field with the defense during practice during the week?
If we weren't coaching it the right way, if we weren't teaching it, if we weren't on it every single day, if when I'm at practice that we're not starting every day of practice with our tackling circuit and talking to our players about how to get in the proper position and going from speed to power. Our problem is we don't go from speed to power. We go from speed to speed, and we miss tackles, and that's not how we teach it. And so we've got to communicate it better. We've got to break it down. When I say do a better job coaching, obviously speed to power is not getting there. So what do we have to do differently? So we're gonna do some things differently that allows us to actually talk about the power end of things and put them in a power position before they tackle, instead of just going from speed to power, because they don't understand power, because all we're seeing is speed and we're missing tackles. So if we weren't teaching those things, if I didn't see them with my own eyes, I'd be over there wearing a hat and a whistle and coaching it myself.
What's your relationship with Brian Van Gorder right now? How is it in the meetings or behind the scenes, one-on-one? How is your relationship? Is it still as strong as it always been?
Colleagues in it together to get the most out of our players. He's coaching his butt off. His staff is working hard. We're trying to find the best solutions to what we have on our side of the ball, and we're going to keep working hard to address them and get our defense to where it needs to be.
Before the season, you said the goal was to make the playoff. That's your goal every year.
Yes.
That seems very difficult to do at this point. What's the goal for this team for the rest of the year?
So, when you, even if we were undefeated, we wouldn't even be thinking about that goal. You know, we'd be so focused on Duke right now, and you guys would be hearing that every day from our guys that you just keep shaking your head. Well, you're going to hear the same thing from me at 1 and 2. We're so focused on getting a win that the goal is really off to the side, and the focus is on how do we play the game better? How do we get this football team to play better on offense with more consistency? How do we eliminate the mistakes that we're making in special teams that are causing us to really stub our toe? And then defensively, play better and more consistently. Instead of shutting out Michigan State for 2 quarters, how do we shut them out for 4 quarters? That's really what we'll be focused on.
Brian, over. I think you might have just answered this, but on the speed to power concept, but do you change up sort of the practice routine this week to emphasize tackling more, or how you go about teaching tackling more? Or do you just sort of try to keep it the same?
We're gonna go against each other a little bit more today, and I'm gonna do it to add more speed to the practice, and we're gonna thud up so we can get from speed to power. Normally, we're in a whiz phase where our guys run by the ball tackler and whiz, which may have, I don't know, I'm just looking to coach better, and so we're going to thud up everybody, which is going to put us in a power position on everything that we whistle off today. And so we'll go 20 minutes together, which we normally don't, just to re-emphasize that speed to power to clean up what I've seen to be, if we just make some tackles on Saturday, we're in a much better position.
3 games into sort of the second phase of Niles Morgan's career, what have you seen? What do you like most?
Toughness sets our front. He made some great front checks. They got into some unbalanced situations. He's moving the front, keeping calls on. We had a couple of defensive linemen that checked out of calls that shouldn't have made it. He's doing a great job of really running our front 7.
And one concept that we saw more on Saturday than the first couple games, Dalen, Julian out there together, Greer and Niles, and then Bonner and Rochelle inside. It was pretty effective statistically. What do you like about that package? Where do you think that can go moving forward?
Julian can bend really well off the edge. He gets there and really forces the quarterback to step up in the pocket. And we think with Rochelle and Bonner inside, athletic guys, that we feel like we can generate the kind of pass rush that we're looking for. You know, Jonathan gets outside his pass rush lane one time, and we get a quarterback that runs out. I mean, we got other things that we need to get better at, but we think that mix can be effective, and we're still trying to find that rotation. But I think we're getting closer to finding that group.
When did you start tinkering with that lineup? Was that August or just
Yeah,
last
it was
week?
August, but it was more about trying to find the rotation that looked right, and whether it was you know, going to be in a 3-down, 4-down. You know, we remember now we had to make some big changes at Texas and moving our nickel out to corner. So we've kind of had to scrap some things over the last couple of weeks.
Thanks.
Over here, Coach. There's been so much emphasis on safety in football and maybe going toward less physical practices. The Ivy League is, you know, talking about eliminating even tackling during the week or contact during the week. Do you feel that has any effect on the tackling performances, maybe as far as more missed tackles and some of the fundamentals lacking?
Lou, I really don't. I really don't. If you look at all, and I went through and I tracked all of our missed tackles. Every single one of them is just poor fundamentally, out of control, not being in control of their body. And if we're just in a better position, a better football position, if we just put ourselves in front of the ball carrier and get run over and hold on for dear life, they're only going to get another yard or two. But we're in a poor position. And so I don't believe that. I don't believe it for a second. I think we have alternatives to teach it safely. We just got our guys in, and they're just too anxious. They're too anxious. They're either behind the play, and they were just late in recognizing and trying to make up for it, and they're out of control, or they're trying to block tackle and should be in a good fit tackle position. So I don't believe that the safety has anything to do with the poor tackling. That's just my opinion.
You talked last week about Daniel Cage playing some of his best football early on in the season, and it seems Jerry Tillery,
Yes.
a lot more active. He's getting 60, 70 snaps now,
Yeah.
whereas last year as a freshman he could get only maybe 20
Correct.
or 30. And it seemed the inside was closing off a number of things against Michigan State, so they were going more to the outside. How would you assess the performance, especially of Tillery?
Tillery was outstanding. He was our best defensive lineman on Saturday. Played his best game since he's been at Notre Dame, which is unfortunate in some respects because I stand up here every week, and I don't talk about all four of them playing their best each and every week. Now, Jerron did some good things, but he lacks a sense of urgency. Isaac's got to let it go, in particular in pass pro. We're waiting for him in pass to get it to that quarterback. He's so close, we want to see him go. Andrew played really hard and really physical. I mean, we're close to getting where I stand before you and go, all four of those guys, or all five of those guys, played their very best. We want to get to that point. We're not there yet, but we're getting closer.
What have you seen in Tillery where his stamina allows him to be able to, you know, get to 60, even 70 snaps? And is that something you want to continue with him throughout the year?
He focused a little bit more on football. He didn't go to Europe. He cut down on his social agenda. He only ran one presidential campaign this year. Honestly, he focused a little bit more on football and his conditioning, and it was on Jerry. You know, Jerry put more time in football, put more time in his development. And again, he was a year into the program, right? He was a freshman last year. And so now he's a year further along in the program, so he's built that stamina, he's built that conditioning. But a lot of credit goes to him. He put a lot of that other stuff, those other things that were part of his freshman year. He did a lot in his freshman year. He did more than most people would do in 4 years. And he put a lot of it to the side to focus on football.
Well, let me follow up with this then. There's sometimes the perception that because Notre Dame student athletes are so well balanced in their lives, whether it's a Corey Robinson or a Jerry Tillery or others, that they maybe don't invest the time into becoming, the top-level football players that maybe at other schools where there's a greater emphasis. And I don't want to say that's a problem. It's good to
Yeah,
have
right.
that
No, I like the fact that our student athletes, in particular our football players, have the option to do other things, because I think you can do other things. Because I think there's enough time to do all those things and become, it's a holistic education here, and I think that's a great thing. It's one of our distinctions, and they get a chance to go abroad and do other things. I think you have to just be really, really disciplined. You have to be unique in that sense, that you have to be so focused and disciplined on your football while you're here. You have to have a sense of urgency. We lack that with our group right now. And we got to get to that. If we can get that sense of urgency, then we're going to be in pretty good shape.
And the last thing I just wanted to follow up on, I think from the outside looking in, the reason you get that question so much is why don't you spend time with the defense, is the perception is Mike Denbrock has been with you forever. He knows the offense. Mike Sanford was brought in to really help augment, some thinking there. If the boss goes over to the defensive side of the ball, perhaps then that sense of urgency on that side will be lifted up.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think the players know that from the head coach's perspective that I'm aware of everything that goes on, because I can speak to them about what their techniques are, what they're doing, how they're doing them on a day-to-day basis. So I can pull Niles aside, and I can pull a DB aside and our defensive linemen, and I can talk to them intelligently about their defensive techniques so they know that I'm in tune to what they're doing. Not, hey, what did you do on that play? So I think that's the most important thing, and that I'm aware of what's going on a day-to-day basis. If I didn't, then you're right. Then I'd have to probably be more active in terms of what we're doing defensively on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
Good?
Good. Thank
right.
you, everybody.
You guys got it all today. I don't know if I can answer any more questions. I'd need a Gatorade.